"May I have your leftover, ma?" But when the billionaire lady looked into his eyes, a miracle happened. It was a quiet Monday evening, exactly 7 p.m. Inside Dublos, one of the most beautiful and luxurious restaurants located on King Street in Lagos. On every table lay expensive plates of steaming hot meals, some expensive jollof rice, others well-spiced chicken, creamy salad, and tall bottles of real high-quality wine. At one corner of the restaurant sat Emily, a 28-year-old self-made billionaire. She was the proud CEO of fashion boutiques and design homes spread across Lagos and many other cities in the country. Yet tonight, she sat there in the restaurant completely alone, no man, no guy, no boyfriend by her side. She wore an elegant, expensive gown that shimmered softly under the restaurant's warm ceiling lights. A gold necklace hugged her neck, her diamond wristwatch sparkled with each tiny movement, and her high heels, sleek and costly, flickered with every shift of her leg. But none of her glamorous accessories could hide the emptiness in her heart. Emily had spent years focused only on work. She had ignored love and relationships, not because she didn't want them, but because of the pain she'd been through. Many men had dumped her back when she had nothing. They called her names. They mocked her, labeling her a gold digger simply because she doesn't have money. Those painful experiences had scarred her, but they also fueled her. She turned her pain into power. She promised herself that she would build a future so strong and so successful that no man would ever dare walk out on her again. And she did. But success came at a cost. Now that she had everything, money, fame, powerful men came back into her life. But this time, they came not out of love, but out of greed. She knew it. She tested them in clever ways, pretending to be poor or helpless, and each one failed. They revealed their true intentions, and they always walked away when they saw there was no money to gain. So once again, she found herself alone. Emily sat in silence, staring blankly at the untouched mountain of fried rice, salad, and chicken sitting on her table. A bottle of red wine stood proudly beside the plate. The rich aroma rose softly to her nose, tempting her. She picked up her fork, ready to take her first bite, but just as Emily brought a spoonful of fried rice and jollof close to her mouth, a voice rose beside her, weak, trembling, compassionate. "May I have your leftover, ma?" Emily froze. Her hand stopped midair, the spoon hanging just inches from her lips. Slowly, she turned her head, startled, and there he was. A man, kneeling right beside her table. He looked no older than 35, though life had clearly aged him faster. He was kneeling on the clean tiled floor, strapping not just one but two babies to his chest. He used a long piece of string tied around his neck, forming a kind of sling. The babies were quiet, tiny, and clinging to him. Their faces were pale, their skin dry, their bodies weak, visibly malnourished. The man wore a pair of old, torn jeans. His sleeveless shirt might have once been white, but now it was stained brown with dust, sweat, and hardship. Beads of sweat rolled down his forehead and neck, making it look like he had just come in from under the rain. His entire body trembled not from fear, but from exhaustion. Yet, there was no shame on his face, no pity-seeking, no manipulation, just a quiet, steady voice and eyes that held something deeper than hunger, a father's desperation. The infants didn't cry, but their wide-open eyes were locked onto the plate of jollof rice, fried chicken, and salad steaming on Emily's table. Soft music still played inside the restaurant. Plates clinked, glasses clinked, conversations whispered, but somehow his voice had sliced through the sound like a blade. And others noticed. The nearest security guard turned immediately and began walking towards him, ready to throw him out. Dublos wasn't a place for beggars, it was a place for the rich. But before the guard could reach them, Emily raised one hand. A small gesture, calm, graceful, but powerful. A silent command. "Let him be." The guard froze and backed away. Emily turned back to the man. Her heart was pounding. She couldn't move at first. She just stared. This wasn't someone trying to take advantage of her wealth. This wasn't a scam. This wasn't a trick. It was real, raw, undeniable. This man wasn't asking for himself, he was asking for his children. She could see it in his face, the tightness around his eyes, the way his body protected them, the way he looked down at them after every word he spoke. Emily's chest tightened, her breath caught. Something inside her, something locked away for years, shifted. The walls she had spent her whole life building, stone by stone walls made of hurt, betrayal, abandonment, they started to crack, and all it took was one man, one question, one pair of helpless eyes. She sat there frozen, unable to explain the feeling. She didn't know how a man could still carry so much love in the middle of so much lack. She couldn't understand how a father, with nothing, could still put his children first. And yet, she saw him. She saw all of it. And in a strange, beautiful way, she saw herself. Her heart, once cold, now started to thaw. She kept staring, lost in thought, as if an invisible thread had connected her soul to theirs. A pull, a bond, as if they belonged to each other somehow. Then, without a word, she reached forward. She slowly pushed the full plate of food across the table, closer to the man. And in the softest, kindest voice she had used in a long time, she said, "Take it." He gently reached out with trembling hands and collected the plate of food from the table. Still kneeling on the ground, he shifted one of the babies onto his lap, while the other lay beside him on a soft piece of cloth. Then he dipped his hand into his dirty jeans pocket and pulled out an old rubber spoon, scratched, faded, but still usable. With hands both gentle and shaky, he began to feed the babies, one spoon at a time, carefully guiding the spoon into their tiny mouths, first one baby, then the other. Their mouths opened wide, eager and innocent, gums bare with no teeth yet, but filled with hunger and trust. He was patient, not rushing. Each bite was offered with love and care, as if the food was gold. Emily sat still, watching. She had never seen anything like it. When the babies were full, their little faces glowed like candlelight. A soft smile spread across their cheeks, pure, bright, and peaceful. That smile, it was a kind of smile Emily hadn't seen in years. A smile not born from comfort or money, but from love and contentment. Then the man reached into his pocket again and brought out a small, worn nylon bag. Gently, he packed the remaining rice and chicken into it, carefully tying the bag like he was preserving treasure. He didn't look around. He didn't care who was watching. He had only one per pesto feed his children. Emily could feel something stirring deep in her chest. Her heart beat louder, heavier, as though it was waking up from a long coma. It wasn't pity. It wasn't charity. It was something deeper. What she was witnessing was secrete a kind of love that couldn't be bought, replaced, or fully explained. A love only those who had known real loss could understand. The man tucked the nylon bag into his pocket, strapped both babies back on his chest with the same piece of cloth, and stood to his feet. He turned to Emily, looked her in the eyes, and said softly, "Thank you." Then he walked away. He didn't touch the wine. He didn't ask for more. He didn't beg. He only took what he needed to save his children from hunger. He passed through the glass exit door and disappeared into the night. Emily remained seated, frozen. She couldn't move. She kept staring at the spot where he had stood, her eyes burning with emotions she hadn't felt in years. Slowly, she rose, not in a rush, but with quiet purpose. She pushed her chair back gently, walked across the restaurant, and stepped through the heavy door into the cool night air. She didn't know why she was following him, only that she had to. She kept her distance, her expensive heels clicking softly on the sidewalk as she trailed behind him. She watched how carefully he covered his children with a piece of cloth, how he cradled them like glass, how his body formed a protective shield over them. He moved slowly down the quiet street until he reached what looked like an abandoned mechanic workshop. Rusted cars stood around like forgotten ghosts, but one of the cars, an old beat-up Peugeot, had signs of life. Emily watched as he gently opened the creaky car door and stepped inside. The interior was dark, dusty. A thin blanket laid across the back seat served as their bed. He settled in slowly, cradling the babies in his arms, rocking them gently. Then, in a soft, cracked voice, he began to sing, "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine." The babies calmed instantly, their little heads resting peacefully on his chest. Emily stood close, almost at the door of the car. Her eyes filled with tears, not from sadness, but from something deeper. She saw something in that car that she didn't even see in her mansion. Love, real love, poor in wealth, but rich in heart, rich in purpose, rich in meaning. She took one step closer and gently tapped the edge of the open car door. The man turned, startled. "I'm sorry," she said quickly, her hands raised in peace. "I didn't mean to scare you. I just wanted to see if you were okay." "You followed me?" he asked, his voice calm but curious. "Yes, I followed you," she replied softly. He didn't panic. He didn't flinch. His tired eyes looked into hers, steady, measuring the woman standing in front of him, so clean, so polished, so different. "I saw the way you fed your sons," Emily said, her voice low with emotion. "I've never seen anything like it before. I needed to understand." There was a pause. The night wrapped them in silence. Then, quietly, the man said, "Their names are Paul and Silas." He looked down at them, gently stroking their little heads. "I'm Matthew. They're 8 months old, and they love fried rice." "That's my favorite too," Emily said quietly. Matthew smiling faintly as he looked down at the baby in his arms. "I used to be to-do, had a small but growing business. Life was good." He paused for a moment, then continued, his voice still calm, still steady, without a trace of bitterness. "But then, I got into a bad business deal, and everything I had worked for crashed. Just like that, it was all gone. The money, the customers, everything." Emily listened silently. He looked at her again. "When things got tough, Sandra, their mother, left. She said she couldn't suffer. She followed another man who could give her the kind of life I no longer could. She walked away without even looking back." Emily's eyes widened slightly. "My parents warned me about her, you know. They saw through her, but I was too blinded by love. I refused to listen. When I insisted on staying with Sandra, they disowned me. And after she left, I was left alone with these 2 tiny lives." He looked down at his sons with quiet strength. "We've been on our own ever since. For more than 3 months now, this old car has been our home. I clean houses. I carry cement at construction sites when I get lucky. We just do what we can to survive." He wasn't telling his story to impress or to ask for help. He spoke plainly, almost like he was just speaking to himself without any anger, without blaming anyone, just truth. Emily swallowed hard. "Can I carry one of the babies?" she asked softly, stretching her hands forward. Matthew looked at her, his eyes lingering on her face for a moment. He hesitated, clearly torn. "Can I trust her? Will she hurt them?" But then, slowly, he nodded and gently passed one of the babies into her arms. Emily received the small child carefully, holding him close to her chest. The baby was warm, light, and fragile. She looked down at him, compassion in her eyes, a soft pain etched into her expression. What did they do wrong to deserve this kind of life? What crime did they commit to be born into such suffering so early? Tears welled up in her eyes. She looked around the worn-out blanket spread in the car like a mattress. The small clothes hung across a string tied inside the vehicle. They were faded and not too clean, probably washed without soap, maybe even rinsed with rainwater. "I can help," she said suddenly, her voice trembling. "I can get you a hotel, food, whatever you need." But Matthew raised his hand gently to interrupt her. "No," he said calmly. "I'm not asking for money." Emily blinked, stunned. Then, "What do you want?" she asked, her voice soft and curious. Matthew looked at her, eyes tired but kind. He let out a deep sigh. "I just want them to be taken to a hospital," he said. "To be examined by a pediatrician. I need to know they're okay." He looked down at them again, his voice breaking just a little now. "And just one night where they can eat well, sleep in a safe place, and be okay. That's all." His words hit Emily harder than anything else could have. She felt it not just in her ears, but deep in her soul. This wasn't a man asking for survival. He was asking for safety, for dignity, for a night of peace for his children. In that moment, Emily saw something in Matthew that shook her to her core. Something familiar. A kind of love so rare, so genuine, it made her heart ache. It was the kind of love she had always craved, the kind of love she wished a man would have for her, the kind of love she wished the father of her own children, if she ever had any, would have. And she knew this man, sitting inside a rusted car, with nothing but 2 babies and a blanket, had more to give than all the rich, smooth-talking men she had ever met in her life. She started remembering the way he had held those babies close to his chest, wrapping his arms around them like a shield, protecting them from the cold, the noise, the world. That image stirred something deep inside her, something that had been buried for so long. Every man that had come her way had only wanted to take her money, her status, her body, but never truly give her love, never care for her soul, never protect her like this man protected his children. Her heart had grown cold over time. But tonight, something inside her was thawing. "Thank you," Emily whispered, her voice soft, almost breaking.
Matthew looked up in surprise. His tired eyes met hers. "Why are you thanking me?" he asked gently. Emily looked down at the baby in her arms, then back at him. "For reminding me that I still have a heart," she said. Matthew didn't say a word. He only looked at her quietly, then tightened his arms around the baby in his chest and softly resumed his lullaby. "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine." Emily stood there a little longer, watching them, this man and his sons, cradled in poverty but wrapped in pure, unshakable love. Something in that moment changed her, silently, permanently. From that night on, Emily couldn't shake the image from her mind. She saw him constantly in flashes, in thoughts, in dreams. The man who sat on the cold, hard floor, feeding his babies with his own trembling hands, with care, with love, with dignity, not even sparing a single bite for himself. She remembered how he poured the leftover food into a nylon bag, carefully, as though it was a treasure, and he hadn't even tasted the food. She remembered the look in his eyes, not begging, not angry, not ashamed, just a quiet, burning love for his children. No matter how many emails Emily skimmed through in her office, no matter how many luxury meetings she walked into, no matter how much perfume or designer shoes or fine wine surrounded her, their faces stayed with her. 2 babies, one father, surviving not on wealth, but on kindness, sacrifice, and quiet strength. In the same city where some people drank $800 wine in one sitting, a father and his twin babies were surviving on resilience alone. The next morning, just as the sun began to rise over the rooftops of Lagos, Emily was already awake. This time, she didn't head to her office or check her emails. She went straight to her kitchen. With focused hands, she packed a large cooler with steaming fried rice, loading it generously with tender, juicy chicken. She didn't stop there. She filled another cooler with freshly made soup and thick, rich stew. Everything was hot and neatly arranged. The aroma filled the kitchen, warm and inviting. Then she picked out a strong travel bag and began to organize everything inside. On her way out, she made a stop at a private hospital nearby. She walked straight to the receptionist and politely booked an appointment with a pediatrician. 2 babies, she said, twins. They need to be checked for malnutrition, infections, and proper growth. She paid in full and collected the appointment slip, placing it carefully into a clean white envelope. After that, she stopped at a nearby supermarket. She picked out a full pack of baby diapers, powdered baby milk, a tin of custard, and baby feeding bottles. She didn't rush. She took her time to choose the best items. This wasn't charity to her. It was personal. When she arrived at the abandoned mechanic workshop, the sun had barely climbed. She quietly approached the rusted bus where Matthew and the babies stayed. But it was empty. No one inside. She peered through the cracked window. The thin blanket was still laid out in the back seat. A few baby clothes hung limply from the string. But Matthew and the twins were gone, probably out early, searching for his daily bread again. Emily sighed softly and gently opened the creaky bus door. She stepped inside and placed the still hot food coolers carefully in one corner of the bus. Then she reached into the shopping bag and pulled out the diapers, baby food, and milk. Inside the same bag, she tucked in the white envelope that contained the pediatrician's appointment slip. She paused, then tore a small piece of paper from her notebook and wrote something. "Don't fail to call me whenever you need anything." Underneath, she wrote her phone number, bold, clear, easy to see. She placed the note on top of the diapers, and just before zipping the bag halfway, she added a small folded bundle of cash, enough to transport the babies to the hospital and buy whatever else they might urgently need. She looked around the empty vehicle once more, her heart full. Then, quietly and without a sound, she closed the bus door and walked away. Matthew came back home that evening after a long day of hard labor at the construction site. His shirt clung to his body, soaked in sweat and dust. His trousers were even more tattered than the day before, and his face looked drained, sunburned, tired, and dusty. But still, he had his baby strapped to his chest, held tightly with the same piece of cloth he always used like a sling. He walked with slow, heavy steps, but his eyes never left the babies. He pushed open the creaky metal door of the abandoned bus they called home, and stopped. His eyes widened. He stood frozen. There, in the corner of the bus, was a bag, a cooler, diapers, baby milk, custard, a white envelope. His jaw dropped as he stepped closer, blinking as if he was dreaming. He placed the babies gently on the blanket and reached for the bag with trembling hands. He opened it carefully, still half in disbelief. The rich aroma of food filled the entire bus in seconds. He opened the first cooler. Fried rice and chicken still warm. His heart beat faster. He quickly opened the second, homemade soup and stew. The smell made his stomach growl painfully. Then he saw the note. He picked up the small piece of paper and read Emily's handwriting. "Don't fail to call me whenever you need anything." And beside it, her phone number. His hands trembled more as he opened the envelope. Inside was an appointment letter for a pediatrician already paid for. Tears welled in his eyes, but he blinked them back. No time to cry. He reached for the plate, scooped some of the food from the cooler, and gently woke his babies. "Wake up, Paul. Silas. Food done come," he whispered softly. With shaky hands, he fed them, one spoon at a time, gently, lovingly, just like always. They ate, and they were filled. For the first time in a long, long time, they ate until they were full. And for the first time in years, Matthew ate to his satisfaction. When he finished, he didn't waste a second. He cleaned his hands, wrapped the babies again on his chest, picked up the appointment letter, and rushed out. At the hospital reception, he held out the white envelope. The receptionist frowned at his appearance at first, but took the letter, read it, and her tone changed. She led him to the pediatric wing. Inside the doctor's office, Matthew sat nervously, gently bouncing the twins in his arms. The doctor, a kind-faced woman, examined both babies carefully. She checked their weight, their temperature, their breathing, and their bones. Then she smiled. "They are okay," she said gently. "Healthy, but they're slightly malnourished." Matthew nodded. "I know things are hard," the doctor added, "but try your best to feed them well. Children need the right food at this age." Matthew looked at her, grateful, and replied softly, "I'll do my best, Ma." The doctor gave him a gentle look of pity and admiration. "God will help you," she said with a warm smile. "Amen, Matthew replied. He stood, strapped his babies back onto his chest, thanked the doctor again, and left the office. Then one evening, as October's cold breeze began to creep into the old bus through the broken windows, the missing glasses, and the poorly covered doors, disaster struck. Paul, the quieter of the twins, had been shivering all through the afternoon. He refused to eat. His forehead was warm. By nightfall, he was burning up with fever. Matthew had tried everything. He dipped small pieces of rag into cold water and gently wiped his son's body, hoping to reduce the heat. He whispered lullabies in a trembling voice, rocking the baby back and forth in the back seat of the bus. "Shh, Daddy's here. It's okay. You'll be fine, my boy." But Paul's cry grew more urgent, more painful. His tiny chest rose and fell too fast. His breathing became shallow. Matthew's heart pounded with fear. Without a second thought, he strapped both babies onto his chest again and rushed into the cold night, running straight to the nearest hospital's emergency room. He burst through the doors breathless. "Please, help my baby," he said, gasping, cradling Paul in his arms. The woman behind the counter glanced up but barely. Her eyes scanned his tattered clothes, dirt-covered shirt, sweat-soaked face, and the babies clinging to his chest. Her face changed. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was flat and uninterested. "Yes? What is the problem? My son, he's burning with fever. He's not responding. Please, I need help," Matthew explained quickly, urgency written all over his face.
The woman sighed, clearly unimpressed. "You'll have to make a deposit before any treatment can start." Matthew hesitated. He swallowed hard. "I don't have money right now. Please, Ma, just help me. He's only a baby. He's burning up, please." The woman's face hardened. She looked at him like he was wasting her time. "This hospital is not a charity organization," she snapped. "You need to pay before you can be attended to. Please, May, look at him. He's not even moving well. His fever is too high. Just help me." "You may have to wait till later," she said coldly, "so you can plead with the doctor. Maybe he can help you." Matthew's hands trembled as he held Paul tighter. "Please, don't let him die." "If you cannot pay," the woman interrupted harshly, "you can try another hospital. Stop disturbing me." Her voice had risen, loud enough for others in the waiting area to hear, but nobody moved. Nobody helped. Nobody looked. Matthew stood there crushed, helpless, desperate, with his baby's life slipping through his arms. Matthew rushed out of the hospital, his legs barely steady beneath him. The cold night air slapped against his skin, but he didn't care. He held the babies tighter than ever, wrapping his arms around them as if his own warmth could save Paul's life. His entire body was shaking, partly from the cold, but mostly from fear. He panicked. What else could he do? He had tried. He had begged. He had hoped. And now, he was running out of time. Then, out of desperation, he remembered something, or rather, someone. With trembling fingers, he dipped his hand into his pocket and pulled out his old, cracked phone. He unlocked it and scrolled to Emily's number, the one he had never dared to call until now. He didn't have the words. He didn't even believe she'd answer. But still, he typed 2 words. "Help us." He hit send and waited. He didn't know if she would come. He didn't even know why he believed she might. But 6 minutes later, just as he was pacing helplessly near the gate of the hospital, a beam of light pierced through the darkness. A sleek, black SUV roared into the compound, tires screeching to a stop at the entrance. The driver barely had time to fully park when the door burst open. Emily jumped out. She didn't wait. She didn't ask questions. Her eyes scanned the crowd until they landed on him, Matthew, standing frozen with both babies strapped tightly to his chest, tears in his eyes and panic on his face. Without a word, she rushed forward. Matthew stood in disbelief. But Emily didn't hesitate. She gently reached out and took Paul from his arms, holding the burning child against her. She turned and marched straight into the hospital, straight to the front desk. She didn't care who was waiting. She didn't care about the rules. "I want a doctor. Right now," Emily said sharply to the receptionist, her voice calm but burning with fire. "This child has a critical fever," she continued, her tone cutting through the room like a blade. "I will cover every single cent, just treat him now. But if one more minute passes without action, I swear I will buy this entire hospital and fire every single one of you." The woman at the desk, who had earlier dismissed Matthew like trash, now stood up immediately, face pale. Within seconds, nurses rushed out and took the twins inside. Matthew stood beside Emily, weak, silent, and stunned. They both sat in the reception area afterward. Matthew's body was soaked in sweat. His arms hung limp at his sides. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in days. Emily, still dressed in a fine blouse and fitted jeans, didn't care about his dirty, sweat-soaked clothes. She simply leaned toward him and gently tapped his shoulder. "You're okay now," she said quietly. "They're going to be okay." Matthew said nothing. He couldn't. His throat was tight, his heart too full. When the nurse returned later that night, she had good news. "Both babies are stable," she said with a warm smile. "They've been treated and are resting now. We'll monitor them overnight, but they'll be just fine." Matthew's head dropped slightly, and he let out a breath he didn't even know he was holding. Tears gathered in his eyes, tears of relief, of gratitude, of pure, raw emotion. Emily didn't leave. She didn't say, "You're welcome," or "I have to go." She simply stayed, all night, sitting beside Matthew in that hospital reception room, waiting, watching, protecting, until the first light of dawn broke through the windows. Very early the next morning, the doctor approached them in the hospital waiting area. Emily and Matthew immediately stood to their feet, eyes filled with concern. "The children are doing better now," the doctor said warmly, "but their condition was caused by exposure to cold and mosquito bites at night." Matthew bowed his head slightly, guilt creeping in again. "Young children," the doctor continued, "don't have strong resistance like adults. Their immune system is still developing. Please, make sure they sleep in a warm, cozy room with the windows properly shut, and always put them in baby sweaters at night." "Thank you very much, doctor," Emily said sincerely, nodding. "We'll do our best to take very good care of them." The doctor gave a kind smile and walked away. Emily turned to Matthew slowly. Her voice was calm but firm. "You're not going back to the streets again?" Matthew blinked, unsure if he heard her right. "You're not going back to that abandoned bus," she repeated. Matthew froze. He looked down at his dusty shoes, then back up at her. "But where will I go?" he asked, confused. "I have no money. I can't afford a proper apartment." "Don't worry," Emily said gently. "You'll stay at my house." Matthew looked shocked. "I stay alone in a very big house," she continued. "There's enough space for you and the babies." Matthew's mouth parted, but no words came out at first. Then he shook his head. No, I can't do that," he said quietly, hesitating. "You've already done more than enough for us. I can't be a burden." Emily stepped closer. "You may be strong enough to survive the cold. Maybe you've learned to endure hunger and hardship," she said softly. "But think about the babies." She placed a hand gently on his arm. "They're still very young, Matthew. They can't face life the way you can. You have to come with me for them." Matthew was silent for a moment, his thoughts racing. He looked at his son sleeping peacefully now, for the first time in weeks, and he knew she was right. There was no better option. Finally, he nodded slowly. Thank you very much," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Emily smiled warmly. "Don't thank me," she replied, her voice kind and full of grace. "Thank God. I'm just glad I could help." Life at Emily's house was nothing short of happiness. For the first time in a very long while, Matthew felt peace. He couldn't stop thanking Emily for everything she was doing. Every time he looked at the babies smiling in clean clothes or saw a full plate of food on the table, his eyes would mist up with quiet gratitude. Emily had gone all out. She bought Paul and Silas new baby clothes, soft blankets, tiny colorful shoes, toys that lit up and sang. and every kind of baby food she could find. She even took Matthew shopping new shirts, trousers, shoes, and clean underwear. When they came back home with bags full of clothes, he had stood in front of the mirror and barely recognized himself. Within weeks, Matthew had transformed. No more sweat-drenched rags. No more dusty hair or tired, sunken cheeks. He was clean, well-fed, handsome once again, and most importantly, hopeful. He never believed there would be a time when he and his babies would have enough to eat, enough to wear, and a roof over their heads. But now, here he was because God sent Emily. The twins were glowing. Their faces had become brighter with each passing morning. They laughed more, slept better, looked healthier and stronger. At home, something had also changed in Emily. Her heart, once cold and guarded, had started to open up in ways she didn't expect. The lonely mansion she used to call house had become a home. No more silent meals in the large dining room. No more eating alone in front of the TV. No more walking into an empty hallway after a long day at work. Now she had company. A family. At work, she focused better. She smiled more. But in the middle of her busy hours, she found herself missing home, not just the house, but the feeling of home that waited there. She knew that when she walked through that front door, she would be greeted with love, Paul giggling in his walker, Silas bouncing in Matthew's arms, and the smell of warm food coming from the kitchen. Emily and Matthew often cooked together. He would chop onions while she stirred the pot, and both of them would sing, laugh, and dance around the kitchen like old friends who had known each other for years. Sometimes they teased each other. Sometimes they just worked quietly with soft music playing in the background. And in those moments, Emily felt something she had never felt before. A kind of love her money had never bought. Not from the rich men who once chased her. Not from those who pretended to care. But here, in the warmth of the kitchen, in the laughter that bounced off the marble walls, she found joy. When they went out, Emily would carry Paul while Matthew carried Silas. People often smiled at them in public. Some would even stop to greet them. "Wow, such beautiful twins. You two look good together. What a lovely family." At first, Matthew would smile politely. But Emily, she didn't mind at all. She liked the sound of it. She liked the way people thought they were a couple. And, deep inside, she liked the way Matthew looked at her now. He had become more confident, more relaxed. His smile came easier, and he had grown even more handsome in her eyes. Something had begun to stir in her heart. A quiet flutter. Something real and deep. But she didn't know if Matthew felt the same way. She kept it to herself for now. But she couldn't hide the glow in her eyes whenever he walked into the room. Meanwhile, something deeper had been quietly growing in Matthew's heart. Every time he looked at Emily, her kindness, her strength, her beauty, he found himself wondering, why would someone like her allow a broke, dirty man like me into her house, into her life? He had feelings for her. Real feelings. But he often brushed them off. He didn't want to confuse gratitude with love, or let his heart lead him where his pocket couldn't follow. After all, he had nothing. No money, no name, no status. And she was a billionaire. What would she see in a man like me, he thought. Still, the way she cared for the twins, the warmth she brought into their lives, the way her laughter filled the house, it touched a part of his soul that had been silent for years. The twins' smiles and giggles had become the music of the house. Their laughter bounced off the walls like sunshine, bringing warmth to every room. Then, one afternoon, something shifted. Matthew and Emily were in the kitchen, preparing fried rice for lunch. Emily stood by the stove, stirring the pot with grace and focus. Matthew, by the side, was carefully chopping cabbage and carrots on the counter. Soft music played in the background, and the atmosphere was calm, almost magical, filled with the quiet hum of unspoken feelings. Then suddenly, Matthew broke the silence. "Emily," he said softly. She turned her head, giving him her full attention. Yes? He paused for a moment, looking into her eyes. I just want to thank you, he said, for all you've done for me and my boys all these months. Emily smiled gently. You don't have to thank me, Matthew. But I have to, he replied. You've really helped us. You gave us a home when we had none. But, his voice lowered, I think with all you've done for us, maybe it's time we face the world again. Emily's heart dropped. She wasn't prepared for that kind of talk. But I thought everything was okay here, she said, her voice shaky. It is, Matthew said. Staying with you has been the best time of my life. But I'm a man. Emily's eyes welled up, but she didn't look away. I can be part of their future too, Matthew, she said quietly. I want to be in their lives forever. Matthew looked surprised. I want us to be more than just friends, Emily continued. But I don't know how it would sound to you. I feel something for you, something real. She took a deep breath. From that day, when I saw you feeding your sons at the restaurant, I knew this. This is the kind of place I want to be, by your side. Before she could say more, Matthew stepped forward and gently interrupted her. I love you. Emily's heart skipped. I care for you, Emily, I really do. But I was afraid to say it. I didn't think I had the right. I mean, look at you. You're a billionaire, and I have nothing to offer you. Emily smiled softly. But I'm not complaining, Matthew. You don't have to, he replied, a little firmly. I'm a man. I can't just keep living off what you've worked so hard to build. Emily stepped closer. If you really love me and you truly care, then let's build something together, she said. I can help. I know people. I can speak to someone and get you a job, something decent. You'll be able to earn money, take care of your kids, take care of us, and still be the man you want to be. Matthew stood frozen. His eyes widened in disbelief. He couldn't believe it. A woman like Emily, so rich, so beautiful, so full of life, was standing before him, offering him a future he never dreamed he deserved. And not just a future. A family, a home, love. I love you, Emily, he said at last, his voice filled with emotion. I will stay. We'll live life together, and we'll conquer the world. Emily smiled through tears and opened her arms. They hugged tightly, warmly, genuinely. And from that day on, their love continued to blossom stronger, deeper, and real. And so, from pain to peace, from the cold streets to a warm home, love found its way into the hearts of two unlikely souls. Emily and Matthew proved that sometimes the greatest treasures in life come wrapped in simple moments, and that love doesn't care about status, only sincerity. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and comment your thoughts below. And if you haven't already, subscribe for more emotional and inspiring stories just like this one. Your support means the world to us. See you in the next one.